Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, and sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media sites, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, Talk El Paso, Andrew J. Polk. You can find us on most of those platforms here, and our mission to continue having live local talk radio here in the borderland, because damn it, I think we deserve it. But also, you can chime in there, see what we do on the broadcast, the graphics, we put up all that good added value stuff. But this is not to say that we do not very much value and cherish our on-air audience here. Again, if you need to be safe driving here, please don't be online with us. But, I mean, stay safe, but stay informed as we keep talking about, well, all the issues going on here. Some dropping reacts already. We do appreciate Blanca Jimenez over on the Facebook page. Do appreciate that. Just helps with the algorithmic stuff here, because we are dealing with that. But again, we'll be on air for as long as we can. And speaking of being on air, talking about the issues affecting us here in the borderland, a lot to be discussed here today. Some interesting, very specifically local perspective things from the city and, well, county of El Paso. Of course, we've got another just shy of about $10 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds going to be decided upon the use of by county commissioners here in the coming days. They've been having some of those listening sessions that have been coming up here. So, among other things going on with that, the actual disbursement coming up in future meetings here, plus also some questions arising recently from, well, the district attorney's office, among other things, wondering about what has been going on with this, a couple of, well, notable mistrials recently. So some response from the El Paso district attorney on that here, plus a whole lot more on, well, border issues, injecting some outside perspective here, but also very, from a perspective very familiar with the border on its own right, talking with a Senate candidate out of the state of Arizona, which has some very similar but yet very different issues. So a little bit outside perspective can sometimes help you understand a little bit better what your own issues are here. So that'll be our interview going on today, talking with Justin Olson there. So let's dive right into it here with those, again, American Rescue Plan Act funds that are being, well, continued to be discovered about and decided what's going to go on here. So we had talked about this a little bit in the recent days about those listening sessions, I think, being put on by, among other things, the El Paso, the Paso del Norte Community Foundation. And so there's a lot of different aspects that might be going into this, actually, from our news partners over at KFOX 14. They've got the whole potential timeline from the El Paso County on what that might mean and what it'll actually end up looking like, because it's not, of course, a simple process, but we are talking about $10 million coming for that level of use. And whatever you may think about the funds here, I mean, the local use of it could potentially have some impacts. County Commissioner Ileana Holguin saying that particularly nonprofit groups can apply to be using the money here. And they'll also set the criteria during a special session here coming up, or going on today, actually. And so a lot of different groups are potentially going to be a part of it here. So just a little bit of extra injection of money potentially coming into the area out of this here. Maybe not the most startling news, but hey, particularly if you've got organizations that you're a part of that you might want to be involved with this, an important one to note here. But again, more interesting situations going on legally in the area. There was that notable mistrial that we talked about on air as it was just coming in, that there was actually a issue with the jury. There still hasn't been that much more focus on here in a otherwise pretty shocking case, the murder trial after the murder of Erica Gaitan. and then that ended in a mistrial with, again, that kind of nebulous jury issue here. But according to El Paso District Attorney Yvonne Rosales, they are apparently, what she is saying here, I'll just quote from her directly, that there was an issue with the jury there, that the jury had been picked. We were starting the presentation of evidence, and then information was provided to the judge about some technicality and stuff that had happened with the jury. So based on that information, after much consideration by the judge, that's when he did declare a mistrial. But then, of course, the next one that happened within the next week there, Fernando Alarcon, man accused of decapitating his mother in 2017. Again, according from the interview that she did with her news partners over at KFOX 14, there was one juror that could not see it the same way that the other 11 jurors did see things, and they couldn't reach that unanimous verdict here. So the judge gave them sufficient time and tried to urge them to consider all the evidence that had been presented and tried to please work together to have those discussions in the jury room and try to reach a verdict. So, I mean, again, not that mistrials, and one of Rosales' points here is that mistrials are not uncommon. That certainly is a level of truth to it, though, of course, two in close proximity may raise some questions for some about what exactly is going on here. And, of course, there have been some questions ever since, well, the very start of her term of office here about that office here. But I can say personal perspective involving, well, not actually sitting on a jury, because I've only gotten called for actually getting close to a jury once. It always just seems to get canceled here. Not that I have any special out, but luck of the draw sort of thing. I got one within recent weeks that ended up getting canceled at the, not quite the last minute, which I was appreciative of. But having covered plenty of juries and trials here, I know that once you start getting to that, what might also be sometimes referred to as a hung jury, because they just cannot figure out what to do, that there are a couple of things that the judge can do. There's also called the dynamite charge, which is a way more exciting phrase than is really needed to be, which essentially is a little bit more stern language that the judge can apply to a juror, saying, hey, maybe if you have some really deep-seated belief that is conflicting with this, maybe just open your mind and look at all the evidence. It's a specific phrase that they can use that they're not really allowed to do until they end up with this, well, essentially deadlocked jury here. So I'm assuming it was used in this case and just not ended up doing here. So again, some criticism happening of the district attorney office out of here, but her responding with this today, saying essentially, well, these things happen, and well, there will be new dates set for these trials here, and Rosales said she is hoping for them before the end of the year. More largely speaking, I think actual following through with jury trials and things. I mean, we got that story coming out about the woman who's shot in the head allegedly may have been caught on camera here, and that just being, you may have heard it from our news updates earlier today, a wild situation in its own right here. And given this, I guess I want to connect this a little bit to, well, the legality issues we've been dealing with in general, the increased criminality, to be more accurate, and that I think following through with jury trials and making sure that the actual, application of justice is reached to its completion is probably more important now than it has been recently. Never unimportant, don't mistake me here, but that actually having it be completed and seeing that for those that are doing bad things, there will be consequences. Probably just saying maybe we should ramp that up just a little bit here. So not necessarily placing any blame on the district attorney on this, but as a time to really maybe knuckle down and focus on these things, might be a very good time here. Some comments coming in over already right now. Michael Perez, who has been posting about the DEA Drug Take-Back Day, which I do appreciate here, that coming up a little bit later in the month here. Also about a good chance to recycle household batteries. I know I've got a few that are languishing in some of my displays here and packaging at home here. Got some glass containers because, of course, the leakage that comes along with it. If you want to see the link for yourself, best place to do that, going to be going over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Already taking us through the first break of the hour here, because even beyond these, again, very specific local issues, talking about with those fundings and those mistrials that hopefully won't become a trend, we are looking at, of course, those larger border issues. So we've been talking a lot about the issues from our perspective, so thought it might be an interesting time to inject some, well, outside perspective, but still very familiar and dealing with similar issues in their own region. They're specifically from Arizona. So again, after this break, going to be talking with Arizona candidate for the state senator from the state, not a state senator, to say that correctly here, Justin Olson, to go back and, see what that perspective is from, well, the other state over there. So we're going to go ahead and take that break right now. Coming back, we'll get into that interview here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. More comments coming in. RJ about some of these cases here. We'll get into more of these comments and a whole lot more coming after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. If you're wondering how I managed to keep my hair even with this high winds we're expecting coming up here in, well, good shape enough here, and particularly given the seasons, I trust my noggin and all the hair on it to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon. And that phrase is very important for what they do, because they combine the traditional arts of barbering with some of the great services that you can expect out of a spa, plus the ambiance and even services of your favorite watering hole. Literally, I go in there, you get a nice chilled glass of one of my favorite drinks here, even a cold one, and relax and get ready to get myself taken care of, because they have got a whole variety of services from beard styling, hair styling, even some of, again, favorite spa services there. So you can find them online at gentsrepublic.com. Again, gentsrepublic.com, or even give them a call, drop them a line, and make your appointment. I've already got my next one planned, because you really want to make sure that it works for your schedule and that you're not going to miss out on it when it works for you. So give them a call at 915-532-3000. 915-532-3000. And particularly right now, be sure to ask about their prom specials, including getting a free bow tie for the important young man in your life, because, of course, you want to visit them for all of your services, because everyone deserves to get treated like a king for a day. Again, gentsrepublic.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Police and Fire responding to a crash. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins. A big backup to Piedras right now. Loop 375 northbound from the 10 Gateway to Pelicano. It's stop-and-go traffic, and mainly because of that right lane being taken away for road construction. I-10 eastbound at East Lake. A semi's blocking the right shoulder. And Artcraft at Upper Valley, an accident reported there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast Biscuit Sandwich. Just $1. Wendy's knows a better breakfast starts with a better biscuit. That's why you can get a hot and buttery Wendy's breakfast biscuit with bacon or sausage, fresh cracked egg and cheese for just $1. Get your Wendy's Buck Biscuit Sandwich today. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
The new true crime podcast, White Eagle, investigates one of the largest cash heists in U.S. history. The robbery of over $7 million from an armored car warehouse. Was the ringleader a criminal mastermind, or was he a political pawn in a Cold War operation?
For some folks, they were boogeymen. They were, bandits hidden in the mountains and shadowy figures. For others, they were heroes.
Listen to White Eagle on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Phil Swift here for the Flex Seal family of products. There's a lot of ways to protect your home. You could dig a moat. You could bubble wrap it. Or you could train a pack of wolves to protect it. But the best way is with the Flex Seal family of products. So when you need to patch, bond, seal, repair, and stop leaks fast, get the Flex Seal family of products. Available at flexsealproducts.com and fine retailers.
Help DEA keep our community safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 30th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your family medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. To find a collection site near you, visit DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. Visit DEATakeback.com. That's DEATakeback.com.
Every 3 seconds, there is a new victim of identity theft. A criminal could be applying for loans in your name, selling your personal information on the dark web. Now, protecting your identity can be very easy thanks to LifeLock by Norton. No one company can prevent all identity theft or monitor every transaction of every business, but LifeLock, it's simple and easy to protect yourself, and you'll save up to 25% off your first year when you go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock. Just use the promo code Hannity.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. As I have mentioned, we are going to be joined here today and have on the line right now GOP U.S. Senate candidate Justin Olson. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, because we talk a lot about the local issues, and that is still very much our focus here, but getting a little bit of outside perspective can sometimes be useful in, well, evaluating the current situation we are in here. So for those who aren't familiar with yourself, can give you a little bit of background about, why you're running and, your expertise when it comes to these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're definitely right. I mean, these issues, they affect all of us, certainly folks in your local broadcast area, but the border is something that is impacting us all. And I'm from here in Arizona, and we've dealt with border issues for so long now. I was in the state legislature shortly after we passed Senate Bill 1070 to address the illegal immigration that was coming across our border and creating challenges for our communities. And, that's why I first got involved in public policy. It was because of a concern with the Obama administration. We had runaway spending. We had corporate bailouts, too big to fail at the state level. We had a budget crisis, and the state legislature was raising taxes. They were debt financing the state capitol, and they were putting in place budget gimmicks, and they were asking hard-working Arizonans to pay more for their government. I didn't think that it was right. Now we see some of those same challenges under the Biden administration, from the border to the fiscal irresponsibility to runaway inflation. That's what's motivated me to run. I've served in the state legislature here in Arizona, where I funded the border strike force. I defunded Planned Parenthood, defunded Obamacare. I earned an A rating from the National Rifle Association, balanced the budget, cut taxes, grew the economy. That's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need folks who are going to stand strong for border security, for growing our economy, ending this runaway inflation. And that's what I'm running to do, is to replace Mark Kelly with a proven conservative to deliver on these conservative values that all Americans hold dear.
So specifically then on the border security aspects here that you mentioned that you were even voting on back in your time in the state legislature, the issues that we're looking at here are, well, compounding over even just the time in which we had set this interview here, because among other things, we have had here on the Texas side of things, Texas Governor Greg Abbott taking his own actions. He's taken a set of actions, particularly in light of that ending of Title 42 that is pending here, and those have more or less resolved themselves, the most recent ones anyway, when it comes to his enhanced border security that he was putting in place with Texas state troopers here. But of course, on the Arizona side of things, we are looking at some implications from Title 42 there as well. So from the perspective of, from your state, what are some of the implications that you all are looking at when it comes to this potential, and again, currently scheduled for the end of May here, of Title 42?
Well, I'm excited that I'm hearing very positive remarks from all of the current candidates for governor, that they're going to do everything in their power at the state level to address this crisis. Everything from enforcing our criminal trespass laws, because if our law enforcement arrests illegal immigrants and turns them over to ICE, then they are just released into the interior. They don't have to show up for a court date that's years into the future. They've already got what they're after. And so we need solutions at the state level, because the federal government has completely let us down on this responsibility. And so they are looking at these different solutions, following the example that the great patriots in Texas have led, with creating the border walls out of any solutions that they can bring at the state level, putting in place these policies of enforcing our criminal trespass laws. But then in addition, we need folks at the federal level who are going to say, look, we've got to secure our borders. We've got to enforce our laws. We cannot have this chaos at the southern border that's empowering the cartels. It's creating this cover that's enabling them to increase the amount of the illegal substances like fentanyl that are killing Americans, that they're trafficking across the border. And these substances are killing Americans. I mean, this is dangerous. And in addition, it's creating a humanitarian crisis for the immigrants themselves. We're enticing them to put themselves in harm's way. It breaks my heart to see these infants being dropped over the border wall and abandoned by smugglers in the desert. I mean, this should not be happening in the United States of America. And that's why I'm running for the United States Senate, so that we can secure our borders, we can enforce our laws, and we can have an orderly immigration process that protects American communities and eliminates this humanitarian crisis at our southern border.
When it comes to specifically those implications of Title 42, I mean, we've talked a lot about the shifting immigration patterns that we have seen within our area over these last, let's call it, better part of a decade at this point, because of the way things have shifted, moved, changed, and just the literal amount of humans that have been moving through this area and the types of them in terms of the unaccompanied minors, the family units, and then all of these things. So when it comes to your sector of the border there in Arizona, what are some of the expectations about how, immigration shifts might be happening, again, upon this removal of Title 42?
Yeah, this is the latest expression of the Biden administration, the signal that they're sending loudly and clearly to the cartels who want to seek illegal entry into the United States of America, that the border is open for illegal immigration. And this is something that needs to stop. And so the Biden administration should not be allowing the Title 42 to expire. This is the one tool that they've been using to some degree to turn away some illegal immigrants, and so now what we're going to see is an increase from this chaos that we already have at the southern border. It's going to increase even further. It's going to exacerbate the problem even more, because what they've been doing is been turning away these adults without the minors because of Title 42 in order to protect our communities, and now they're going to allow them to enter as well. So, I mean, this is absolutely disastrous. I mean, we need a policy that's in place that follows the example that President Trump demonstrated to be effective. We need to finish the wall. We need to make permanent the Remain in Mexico policy for asylum seekers. We need to properly fund our border patrol. And then I think in addition, we also need a mandatory E-Verify requirement for all employers to check the immigration status of their employees. We put that in place here in Arizona. It was extremely effective. But half of the states do not have that E-Verify requirement, which means that immigrants who are seeking employment can come and they can find employment in these sanctuary states and these sanctuary cities. If we put in place a mandatory E-Verify requirement, then that draw for illegal immigration that's coming here to seek employment goes away. And our Border Patrol could get operational control of the border, and they could stop the cartels and their trafficking of humans and illegal substances that are killing Americans.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Justin Olson, GOP candidate for the U.S. Senate in Arizona. You want to find anything more about him, his campaign, or issues there, vote JustinOlson.com. That's vote JustinOlson.com here. So it's interesting you mentioned the policy, because that has been an increasing frustration, both in the way we discussed it on this program, but also seemingly nationally, of the, yes, around Title 42, whether to keep it or not in this current circumstance. That kind of underlying it is that Title 42 has been kind of a last resort policy, as it has been anyway. I mean, it's barely policy as it is. It's mostly a most removal, even though it hasn't even been foolproof in its own implementation, but it's kind of this kind of short-term solution. So you're talking a little bit more, as you mentioned there, with the looking back at the MPP, Migrant Protection Protocol, so-called Remain in Mexico policy, and further issues like that. So if elected for yourself there, what are some of the things that you would really focus on in terms of, well, immigration reform and border security reform, because they are very much, particularly with this issue, entwined?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know what? On my first day in the United States Senate, I'm going to introduce a bill to secure our borders, and it's going to implement those solutions that I just described: finishing the wall, making permanent the Remain in Mexico policy, properly funding our Border Patrol, and making mandatory the E-Verify requirement for all employers across the entire country. And if we do this, then we can immediately secure our borders. We can get operational control of the borders and take away that chaos that is empowering the drug cartels. We can create a safer community for American societies. And we can end this humanitarian crisis for the immigrants themselves. And then we can have an orderly process for our immigration system, one that verifies who's coming into our country and ensures that they are coming in through the legal processes.
Again, guest right now, Justin Olson, GOP candidate for the U.S. Senate. We are actually due for that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll continue our conversation with Justin here as we continue talking about, well, these border security aspects specifically. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. El Paso County Commissioners will be discussing the next steps in distributing $9.7 million in American Rescue Plan funds. The county held several listening sessions to hear community input on what types of issues the public would like to see addressed with the money. Local nonprofits will have the chance to apply for a share. The city of El Paso is ranked the 12th most populated in ozone in the country, according to the American Lung Association. The State of the Air report was released by the American Lung Association and details two of the most widespread and dangerous air pollutants, which are ozone and particulate pollution. And the El Paso Parks and Rec Department is gearing up to open the city spray parks for the summer season. Several of the spray parks have been plagued by vandalism during the last few months. COVID-19 has also delayed the delivery of necessary parts to complete repairs and maintenance to be able to operate the spray parks. The spray parks are tentatively scheduled to open by Memorial Day weekend. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for a crash, Gateway Boulevard, westbound at Hawkins. Also, the eastbound turnaround lane at Gateway and Hawkins is blocked because of that crash. On the 10 eastbound at Eastlake, a stalled semi's blocking the right shoulder. And watch for stop-and-go traffic on Loop 375 northbound from the Gateway to Pelicano. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Yes, we've had some breezy winds again for our Thursday, but Friday is the big day for our wind maker to arrive. And I'm talking about some areas dealing with wind gusts over 60 miles an hour. There will be a high wind warning for your Friday afternoon, plus a wind advisory. We're looking at very strong winds, blowing dust, and dangerous fire weather conditions.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This spring, let Audible bring a smile with comedy, sci-fi, thrillers, or whatever you love listening to. From audiobooks to exclusive originals to podcasts, find it all on Audible. Sign up and start free at audible.com.
This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us be El Paso's #1 dealer in new Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram sales in March. As a gesture of our gratitude, we've extended all our Ram Truck Month deals, like 0 down, 0% interest for 72 months and no payments for 90 days.
Buy now and save thousands on a huge inventory of new and certified pre-owned vehicles. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. All new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 0 APR for 72 months. 0 payments for 90 days. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms, even if your credit is less than perfect. And we want your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also like vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces is now hiring in-home caregivers. If you're kind and compassionate, then Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces may have a fun and flexible new career for you. Call 575-521-4400 today. Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces, elevating the human spirit.
Liberty. Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
This report is sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance, where you only pay for what you need.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We'll have those phone lines open a little bit later in the program, but those comments definitely coming in over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And don't forget about that talkback feature through the iHeartRadio app. But however you're listening, be it on air, online, or through the app or on social media, more than welcome to chime in over here. Joined here again by GOP U.S. Senate candidate from Arizona, Justin Olson. Justin, thanks for sticking around with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew.
Absolutely here. So we were talking a little bit in the previous segment about some of the issues and the commonalities in their own ways between the Texas and Arizona situations here and what you're running on as U.S. Senate. But something that has come out going a little bit before this current real focus that has been happening on Title 42 and the removal of it and the issues that come with that was this idea of increasing border security and even harkening back to the State of the Union speech towards the beginning of this year. I know that's been largely kind of put to the wayside with the current issues, but there were some very interesting parts that were mentioned during that by President Biden about the idea of border security, other enhancements, increased funding, those kind of things. We've been hearing similar things even when there have been visits to our area by, DHS and, Secretary Mayorkas, things like that have yet to fully materialize. But the simple fact of the matter is that in our area, there are some very challenging physical requirements for, physical security demands that then kind of lend themselves to the idea of, this more high-tech solution. And that's something that you have talked about as well. So when it comes to the potential for more of that kind of implementation, because building a wall, having a physical barrier is one thing, but it still takes essentially intelligence and then manpower to deal with it from a lot of experts I've talked with, because if you just have a barrier and nothing else, then you don't know who is actively then trying to cross sections of it. And if it's not then monitored and maintained, then it's just essentially a time inhibitor is what it comes down to. So when you're looking at these issues, and particularly for the Arizona sector, looking at implementation of greater border security, as you mentioned, knowing everyone who is crossing the border, what are some of the, things that can be done in this kind of arena?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My approach is that we should take an all of the above approach to border security. In the areas where a wall is feasible, we need to build the wall. We need to finish the wall. Taxpayers have already paid for the supplies, and the Biden administration has just left them rotting in the desert, which is so frustrating and upsetting. So we need to finish the wall. But then in addition, we need to use all of the technology at our disposal, sensors, all of the potential resources to be able to detect these crossings, like you mentioned, whether it's in a location where the land makes it very difficult for folks to cross, and so a border wall is not needed, but those sensors can indicate if someone is trying to cross in that particular area. We need all of that technology deployed. We need the manpower. We need folks to be on the ground to be able to go after those who are seeking to illegally enter our country and to detain those folks, and then to ensure that they are properly processed so they don't just end up being caught and released into the interior. So that's why my solution is a solution that is an all of the above approach, and properly funding the Border Patrol, finishing the wall, using the technology so that we can see when these crossings are occurring and stop them.
Let's talk a little bit further about some of those, sensors and technological aspects of it as well. I've seen some various implementations from either, unarmed drone flights that have been going around here in our area. I think people may be pretty familiar if they've ever driven by, some of the border wall areas, the border fence, the border highway, etc. Seeing sensor suites, essentially sometimes mobile, sometimes fixed, along various points here, cameras, other low light sensors, that kind of a thing around here. And so that can get its own costly level, particularly if we're talking about remote areas in which putting infrastructure in can deal with it. So when we're talking about, again, in those, outside of populated area kind of areas, what are some of the technological solutions and how can those really be implemented? And what would you be looking to, say, put into legislation in order to see that done?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. These sensors, the low lights, camera technology, the unarmed drones, everything that we can do to patrol the border and ensure that we have border security, we need to put in place. And is there a cost associated with this technology? Is there a cost associated with constructing a wall? Of course there is, but there is a greater cost associated with giving the operational control of our borders to the cartels. They're increasing the fentanyl that's coming across our border by 134% in the first year of the Biden administration. There's enough fentanyl coming into our country to kill all Americans. I mean, it's just so staggering. So we've got to put a stop to this, and we've got to put all of our resources that are available to securing our border in place so that we can stop this illegal activity that is creating a dangerous circumstance for American communities and a humanitarian crisis for the immigrants themselves.
Mm-hmm. Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Justin Olson, a Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate out of Arizona, talking to us about, well, some of these similarities and other situations between the Texas and Arizona sectors of the border. If you want to find out any more information about him, his campaign, platform issues, etc., you can visit votejustinolson.com. That's again, votejustinolson.com. So again, policy is ending up coming the real focus on this because, again, with Title 42's removal or not, depending on some pending legislation, including some that has been put forth by Texas senators, the real factor is that this is a temporary policy at best. And so looking at further solutions like this, and one of the kind of real sticking points that seems to have come forth is then dealing with immigration reform on the back end. So even just strategically thinking about how this can be done, things like border security implementation, it seems that the way this might happen bipartisanly, if that's not considered a four-letter word these days still, would be to do something comprehensive on both border security and immigration reform at once here. But when we're looking at some of the realities of D.C. here at this point, the appetite is low at best for even border security, but even lower when it comes to essentially immigration reform, given the complex nature of it. I mean, among other things, Title 42 has kind of been exacerbating or a little bit covering for the issue going on with immigration courts and such, because there's still a 2.5, 3-year backlog in some of these cases. So just philosophically speaking, in dealing with all of this, because again, these are kind of intrinsically intertwined because the immigration situation informs what the border security needs are, and even vice versa. How would you go about addressing all of these in order? You mentioned some specific things, but just in terms of priority, how would you want or expect that this could best be done to be gone about?
Yeah, when folks talk about how we're going to address the question about those who are already here illegally, the question always comes up about should the Congress grant some sort of amnesty? And you know what? I cannot support granting amnesty to folks who came here illegally and broke our laws. And the biggest concern that I have with doing that is that it sends a signal to anybody else that if they follow suit and break our laws and come here illegally, then at some point in the future, they will be granted with some sort of legal status. And so it just entices more illegal immigration, and we will never be able to solve the problem of our border security. It was tried in the 80s. We were told that there was the grand compromise, the grand bargain, that we would secure our borders in exchange for granting amnesty. The illegal immigrants got amnesty, and we did not get the secure borders. And so that's what I'm going to stand for in the United States Senate, securing our borders, ensuring that we enforce our laws, and not granting any sort of benefit to those that have broken those laws, because it will just entice more of that illegal behavior.
So when it comes to then just dealing with this here, I mean, we are looking at some very potential, expectations for this, upcoming midterms and such, and even beyond it. But really, when we are looking at the realities of what needs to be done or what really can be done, for the issues that we are dealing with here, I mean, it's kind of a chicken and an egg kind of problem, but it sounds like you're very much in the support of the idea, particularly for the issues you're seeing in Arizona of secure the border and everything comes else after. Is that kind of the way you're looking at it?
It has to be that way. We've got to secure our borders. If we do not secure our borders, then we will not get the border security, even if the left tells us that that will be the price that they're willing to accept in order to get the amnesty that they're after. We will never get it. We've seen that throughout history. And so that's why we've got to secure our borders. And we cannot grant some sort of benefit to those who broke the laws, because it will just entice more of that illegal behavior. But I'm confident that we can, in fact, accomplish border security. I think that the overwhelming majority of American people have seen that this chaotic policy that's been enabled by Joe Biden is bad for Americans, and it's bad for the immigrants themselves. They suffer horrible conditions at the hands of the cartels. They're forced to be mules in carrying the drugs that are killing Americans. the women and the children suffer unspeakable abuses at the hands of the cartels. We've got to put a stop to this. This is inhumane. And we can accomplish it. We can accomplish it by putting in place these simple reforms that President Trump demonstrated to be effective. And we can gain operational control of the border. We can put a stop to this inhumane circumstance that is occurring right now at our southern border.
Again, guest right now has been Justin Olson, Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate in Arizona. If you want to find out anything more about him, again, vote JustinOlson.com. Vote JustinOlson.com. So, Justin, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today about your campaign, the issues here, the perspectives and differences between here along the border in Texas and Arizona, and, well, how people might need to consider all of this here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely here. That's going to lead us to our next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll, of course, open up those phone lines as we do at this point during the show. So again, if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard, westbound at Hawkins. That earlier crash, that injury accident with police and fire on the scene has got traffic backed up to Piedras. 5 to 10 minute delays on George Dieter Drive between Rojas and Vista del Sol. I-10 eastbound at Eastlake, you got a semi blocking the right shoulder. And Northwestern Drive southbound at Paseo del Norte, an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If your company needs to spring into efficient hiring, then check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm Katherine Townsend, host of the true crime podcast Hell and Gone. In October 2015, 18-year-old Ebby Stepwick vanished without a trace.
And then the fact that they found her phone in her car, her wallet, her keys in her car, that right there tells me someone planned this.
I'm back in Arkansas, investigating what really happened to her. iHeartRadio is #1 for podcasts, and it's easy to see why. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
With prices soaring at the pump, Discover has your back with cashback. Use Discover to earn 5% cash back at gas stations and Target now through June on up to $1,500 in purchases when you activate. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/rewards.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, which are also good ways to get at us, get your comments in. A lot of comments coming in about some of these elections, some of these issues, and some things about jury duty. Ed Clore didn't mean to rub salt in the wound by saying he got a jury summons today. And John Browson wishing him congratulations here. Again, talking and hearkening a little bit back to that whole situation involving a couple of mistrials that have happened, high-profile ones, in the local area recently, and how the local district attorney is responding to that here. More comments coming in here about hung juries and issues with that. RJ saying that in that one of those cases, beheading mom seems like a slam dunk guilty to me, just saying. And yeah, I would assume so. But again, there's never been a trial that I've seen that hasn't said something that is, well, at the very least, a little bit maybe disturbing, but also complicated to it. And it's really the important part of prosecutors to, if they're really looking to get that, well, conviction, to clearly and concisely relay that to the jury here. So, and again, thank you to our guest from this hour, Justin Olson, from the, well, running for the Senate seat that's coming up in this upcoming midterm election there in Arizona, the seat currently held by Mark Kelly, as he mentioned here. Some of the other comments coming in about that, John Browson saying that, fortunately, this guy doesn't have Trump's endorsement. I'm sure that will play a part in it. Among other things, though, it's a crowded damn race. There are 9 people going for the Republican nomination for that race. Kind of constrained over in Arizona. Again, just cross-border perspectives here. I'd be surprised if anyone within our listening area, though technically online, I guess someone from Arizona could be tuned in here. I mean, there are 9 people on that ballot, and it's a pretty short time frame. That primary is August 2nd, and then, of course, then the actual election itself on November 8th. So a pretty quick turnaround and an interesting perspective, different from, well, the Texas side of things. But even within Texas, there are being some differences looked at about, well, when primaries work, particularly those presidential primaries, really wanting to spread it out a bit more. According to the Texas Tribune here today, that the Democratic National Committee has allowed states to look to kind of bid for that first in the nation status. Now, we have it when it comes to these primaries, these off year, these, midterm election year ones, but that their Texas Democrats, that's the title here, make moves to be early presidential primary state in 2024. So could actually be getting even earlier for those of us in the Lone Star State before too long here. But again, I thought a little bit of cross-border or cross-the-border perspective, from a different sector than we are in here would be interesting and instructive in its own way here. So curious to know what you all think about that as well. We do have that phone line open, that number to call, of course, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Some more comments coming in about, well, jury duty and such here. John Browson further saying that he was on a hung jury in California on 2 DUI counts. Everyone agreed on count 1. He held on count 2, saying, I'm sure that sooner or later the judge dismissed the second count. It wasn't worth another trial here. I mean, if anyone's ever seen the, among other things, I think the old movie 12 Angry Men, I just hope if I ever find myself in a situation having to have my guilt or innocence decided by a jury of my peers, that it's something like that kind of a group there, at least in terms of their probative nature, looking at the truth behind things. And, well, I guess that's the best we can hope for here. Some other comments coming in here. Telemundo on Univision offering online swimming classes, instructing viewers on how to cross the Rio Grande. That U.S. viewership has declined here. I mean, I don't really know how much swimming classes really affect, at least for our sector here, actually crossing the Rio Grande. We'll see once the release from Elephant Butte comes up here. I mean, swimming is a good skill in general, even if some specific applications you're talking about there might be a little bit, well, let's just call them politically spicy. Because, yeah, recalls from a little while ago, probably a better part of a decade at this point, when there was some artist, I want to say in Mexico, coming out with custom sneakers that were supposed to be engineered to facilitate border crossing, including maps, compasses, extra insole support, that kind of a thing, phrase books. It was more of an art project than anything, but a similar kind of response, I think, happening at that point in time to that idea here. I mean, I don't know. I think it'll still stay up its own way, but, well, of ways to get ratings, if that's really what you're talking about there, I can think of maybe better ones here. Anyway, Ed Glow with a longer comment that won't quite fit on screen here, I don't think here, but I mean, a lot of comments on a lot of these situations here. So again, border security is, of course, very important, and the immigration reform and the issues that come along with it, very impacting to our area here. Flaca Jimenez saying a little bit earlier, basically we should enforce our existing laws. I mean, what a concept when it comes to this and many, many other concepts. Gun control, safety, etc. Enforcing existing laws is a common refrain, but not one often, followed that often, it doesn't feel like. So we'll see what comes out of this, the remainder of this current Congress. And then again, all of these expectations. So a little bit of both the, border security, implementation, technology aspect coming on here with this interview we had today, but also, of course, this midterm election, a lot of potential consequences coming out of it. So it'll take longer to know the exact potentials coming up for, say, that Arizona seat we were just talking about. We'll keep an eye on it, even if no one in our area will be voting on it, because, of course, those national implications will be coming up here. But just even the removal of control of even one house, it's already not exactly been settled over this last, start of this current presidential administration. But, it'll get even more unsettled, and we'll see if anything can get done. I guess that's my real concern here, that if it's going to be this just total backlog, if both houses are captured, that's one thing by the opposing party. But if we have a split in between, just have to keep our eyes open and keep hoping that there are actually things being moved through and addressed as need be. But I guess holding my breath on that will just get me blue in the face, among other things here. So we're coming up on the need for that next break here, going to the top of the hour news. Again, we do have that phone line open. You want to chime in your own 2 cents on these issues we're talking about here today, or the things that affect us here in the borderland. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. A few more things we'll be talking about here. One that's been kind of in the back of my mind here, the other green energy, some more, not exactly subsidies being put forth on it, but support, I guess, might be a better way to put it. But we'll get into that and a whole lot more coming out of this break. Again, you are tuned into here to Talk El Paso, here airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll be back right after this top of the hour news break. But again, if you want to chime in, got a lot of comments coming in, but we'll also take those phone calls, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back in a minute after this news break.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard at Hawkins. That earlier crash is still backing up traffic to Piedras on Loop 375 eastbound at Gateway. The 54 Gateway, disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. It's slow on George Dieter, northbound between Rojas and Vista del Sol. 10-minute delays. Police on the scene of a crash, Northwestern Drive, southbound at Paseo del Norte. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Spring fever means excitement, and at Casa Buick GMC, it's an exciting time for you to trade up for a great vehicle.
It's Casa Buick GMC's Spring Fever pre-owned sales event
this weekend.
Come take your pick from El Paso's giant selection of used cars, trucks, and SUVs.
We heat it up with the best financing options and lowest rates available.
2017 Kia Soul, $16,725. 2016 GMC Sierra SLT, $37,777. 2020 Buick Envision Preferred, $29,776.
It's an exciting time for you to trade up for a great vehicle this Friday and Saturday at Casa Buick GMC, next to the airport, Montana at Airway.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
I loved playing high school sports. I loved the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, all the pageantry, and I wanted to keep playing. But I graduated. No colleges called, and neither did the pros. So, to stay close to the game I loved, I decided to become a high school official. You know, a referee. When I played high school sports, I learned the importance of integrity, good sportsmanship, and respect for the rules. Now, as a high school official, I get to help model these same values to others. Maybe the colleges and the pros didn't call, but the kids in Texas did. And now, I'm enjoying the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, and all the pageantry of high school sports all over again.
This message presented by the Texas University Interscholastic League and the Texas High School Athletic Directors Association.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Pentagon press secretary is announcing the 8th presidential drawdown of equipment from the Defense Department to provide to Ukraine since last summer.
I want to stress again that what we're providing is done in full consultation with the Ukrainians, and that they believe that these systems will be helpful to them in the fight.
John Kirby said in a briefing that it will include 72 howitzers and close to 150,000 rounds, as well as tactical vehicles to tow the howitzers, more than 120 Phoenix Ghost unmanned aerial systems, and field equipment. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis isn't happy with the Justice Department's decision to appeal a court ruling striking down the federal mask mandate on mass transit. Speaking in the state's panhandle, the Republican said there should be no mandates, period. DeSantis singled out the airline mandate, saying it's one of the most cruel, adding, because of air filtration systems, you just don't have outbreaks on planes. Wall Street is closing with stocks much lower, even after a new batch of solid corporate earnings reports. The 10-year Treasury yield rose close to 2.9%, which is near its highest level since 2018. The convoy of buses, which have been bringing illegal immigrants from the Texas border to Washington, D.C., keep coming.
We have now sent a total of 10 buses of migrants.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott says that the goal is to show the president how many migrants are streaming across the border every day. And by bringing them to the steps of the U.S. Capitol, the Republican governor says that Congress will be forced to deal with it. The shelter-in-place order at the University of California, Berkeley campus is now over, but there's no word on the search for a suspect. Police say they are familiar with the person who allegedly made threats against specific students. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Charleston is weighing in on the executions making headlines in South Carolina.
The diocese statement followed the South Carolina Supreme Court's decision to issue a temporary stay of execution for Richard Moore. The statement said the diocese was pleased to learn of the decision, and it went on to say it hopes for the same outcome regarding the execution of Brad Sigmund, who's scheduled to be put to death next month. The diocese went on to say justice is not restored when another person is killed. I'm Sarah Bartlett.
U.S. Senator Mike Lee says the texts he was exchanging with then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows were not a sign that he was advocating for overturning the 2020 presidential election. Speaking with the Deseret News, the Utah Republican says his goal was to determine what Congress's role should be. Despite the recent mask mandate being lifted on public transportation, a new poll suggests most Americans are in favor of renewed mask and vaccine mandates in the event of another COVID-19 surge.
The survey by News Nation released Tuesday finds 63% of people polled said they were at least somewhat concerned about the pandemic, with 20% who said that COVID-19 was a bigger threat over inflation, unemployment, or crime. The poll comes at a time when cases are once again starting to rise nationally. A new COVID Omicron subvariant called BA2 is believed to be 30% more contagious. The majority of those polled also favored stay-at-home orders and non-essential business shutdowns amid a surge. I'm Liz Kennedy.
A rare flower known for emitting a foul smell is blooming for the first time in years at a Michigan college. The corpse flower is named after its unique odor, which has been compared to that of decomposing flesh. Grand Valley State University said the flower bloomed for the first time in 7 years Monday in a second-floor greenhouse. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Work. That's work. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Gila River Hotels and Casinos.
Your moment has arrived at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Phoenix, Arizona's newest resort. It's time to own your moment, so you do you. For more information, visit playatgila.com.
Hi, Phil Swift here.
When that next storm is barreling down, get prepared with the Flex Seal family of products. Floods can destroy your home. Push Flex Base deep into cracks and holes to help prevent flooding. Seal doors and windows, patch leaky roofs and downspouts. Remember, when that storm is coming your way, keep your family safe and dry. Be prepared with the Flex Seal family of products. Available at flexsealproducts.com and fine retailers.
Hi, guys. It's me, Brian Baumgartner, and maybe you've heard my podcast, The Office Deep Dive. Well, now I'm expanding it into even more of your favorite shows in my new podcast, Off the Beat.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rob Riggle.
Hi, I'm Allison Hannigan.
My name is Jamie Lynn Sigler, Meadow Soprano.
Eric Stone Street. I played Cameron Tucker.
Listen to Off the Beat on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there on those aspects. Barbara Carrasco, Ed Clore, Maria Coleman, John Brazelton, Flavio Jimenez, RJ, and more tuning in, chiming in over there. More than welcome to leave your comments there throughout the show. But of course, we do have that phone line open right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Taking those throughout the rest of the hour here. So if you want to chime in with your 2 cents on these issues, affecting us here in the borderland, some of the better ways to do so here. Some of the interesting comments here. Ed Clore recounting a story of a near Roma RGC agents. Wonder if that's a bit of a typo there, but that a Honduran national boy, about a young boy, apparently unaccompanied minor, on April 19th, recounting that story there. So that's the kind of comment you can go and see over there, along with some of the other comments that we've mentioned here, and more than been able to get to, even over on the social media here. Facebook's the main one. That's where the Thunderdome of comments is, and the Skeptic Squad assembles daily here. So if you want to chime in over there, more than welcome to. Some of the things, again, we're talking about here today. Thanks again to our guest from previous hour, Justin Olson, U.S. Senate candidate from the state of Arizona. Interesting situation in that whole state. I mean, we've got, there's been a lot of focus on those senators, even in this, recent round of, everything. So that'll be an interesting race to watch, even just for the national implications and legislative implications. But beyond that, just the other perspective on the portions of the border here, plus some of those local stories, including what we got going on with the DA's office responding to a concern about those recent, couple, but some, once in that close proximity time-wise, people can start drawing conclusions, it seems. So saying essentially that this isn't that big of an issue, it's just essentially a fluke happening right now, that these will get rescheduled. But then also a whole lot more talk about the money going to be spent from that latest round of the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA, funds from the county. That more coming out here this week. But again, phone calls open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. I have a call on the line right now. We have Raul in the Northeast here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Big news day today. I don't know. I'm sure you saw some of it. President Obama was speaking about disinformation, saying that it's killing people. Pointed out that 1 out of 5 Americans have chosen not to get vaccinated, some of them because of disinformation. That 1 out of 4 Republicans, now Obama didn't say this, it's just another data point, 1 out of 4 Republicans are believers in QAnon. Really, really crazy stuff. Now, Obama said that Putin and Steve Bannon weakened democratic institutions with their lies. So, so on another front, news reports that Republican leaders vowed to get Trump out of politics after 1/6. And reports are that Moscow Mitch McConnell said that enough Republicans would vote to convict Trump to remove him from office. Now, about President Biden on the other side of the coin, my view of President Biden, I think I give him an overall B+ grade for his presidency and an A on his handling of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And I thank my fellow Americans, the 81 million of us who voted Trump out of office. Now, President Biden's performance, first of all, President Biden inherited a sick, poor, and very divided country, suffering from a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic handled poorly by his predecessor that derailed the global economy. Obama handed Trump a growing economy, while Obama inherited a crash economy from another of the worst Republican presidents in U.S. history, warmonger Bush #2. And America has suffered through the first ever insurrection and coup from a president who won the presidency with the help of America's historic nemesis, Russia, and its dictator, Putin. Putin mounted a successful cyber attack and hacked our election, exploiting America's internal contradictions, societal grievances, racial divisions, and culture wars. Any fair appraisal of the current high inflation would not blame Biden for it. Inflation has been principally caused by the pandemic, which disrupted the global labor supply chains and a recovering economy, and then the unleashing of all that pent-up demand and capitalist profiteering. And all the problems that the country is currently facing, if Trump had been elected, would be the same. The difference is how Trump would handle them. Inflation would be the same because presidents don't control inflation any more than they control gasoline prices. And on Putin's invasion of Ukraine, Trump may have bought and sold Putin's line that this special military operation was to liberate the Ukrainians from Nazi pedophiles. President Biden hasn't gone golfing once since taking office, while Trump golfed throughout the pandemic and for a quarter of his failed presidency.
Again, as much as I love a review of the relative merits of the previous presidency, let's get into some of these issues you're mentioning here. I don't follow your line on that thing you just said, that the former president bought Putin's line here. If anything, I mean, there was a kind of the art of the deal kind of analysis coming out of the former president, Donald Trump, saying that, well, I thought he was going to use this as negotiating power, which would have been a reasonable analysis right up until the fact of when it didn't come true here. But even larger than that, even if you're saying that, okay, inflation would be the same here, then that is tantamount to admitting that essentially that this administration has no control over the economic situation we're using, despite there being a whole lot of tools that have been touted. They've definitely been touting things of the impact on, well, among other things, employment numbers, which I also don't buy because, yeah, there's been a lot of rebounding happening, a lot of removal of restrictions here. So to say that there were just, I mean, it's almost as bad the way you're putting it, to be perfectly honest here, the idea that we are just adrift on this sea of circumstances that there's literally no control over, so we might as well stick with the administration we have. Like, that's almost worse than incompetent. It's completely impotent. And if that's really then a benefit seeing of the current administration, I think that kind of reasoning is why there is this concept that is continually coming forward about, well, what the results of these upcoming midterms elections are going to be. Because the idea that, well, nothing can be done, so might as well keep it in place, that generally doesn't ring that well, just with American voters, to be perfectly honest, with the idea that, no, we can't do anything, so you better just keep us in place because, well, what are you going to do better otherwise? I think people are going to try and seek better otherwise, because that tends to be what people do. Again, negative votes, as much as I hate it, tend to be a little bit more drawn out to the polls than positive votes of, well, I think things are going great, so we need to keep it going, versus, man, things are awful, we need to change things. And given these situations we're talking about here, inflation, the continuing supply issues, and sure, I'm not laying all of these at the feet of the Biden administration. We are looking at a whole lot of issues coming in here, but also in that same token, this line that you're referencing that has come up over years about the idea that there's prosperity of essentially Democrat administrations and then downfalls within Republican administrations is an interesting one, but also fails to look at, well, the underlying concepts, like you just said, about all lack of control on things like gas prices, and then furthermore, inflationary issues here. And really, when we're talking about economic cycles, sure, an administration could do something to tank them pretty fast here, but they tend to go well beyond that. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, going into the Obama administration, if we want to go back that far specifically, the idea of, we made everything so much better, so all this growth was, coming out of very serious downturn that happened at the end of the Bush administration. And sure, there might be some analysis out there that I give some credence to about, the various policies, push versus pull when we're talking about direct infusions of cash versus the idea of there being tax cuts. Again, whether you can push or pull a string in some of these, the political science and economic referencing of it is debatable. But also would also want to point out that I believe it was it was a little bit before my time really being able to vote for office here, but that during the Bush administration, the second Bush administration, they actually did do some direct stimulus payments here. So they even tried both here. So to say that, that was flawed, but it worked this time around is lacking in analysis from my standpoint here. So again, as much as I love a review of, again, the relative merits that you feel of the previous administration, not exactly what we focus on here, but I guess we'll respond to it in due course about what is the important things and what really affects us here in the borderland. Let's talk about that here real quick, because when we're talking about border security, we have certainly had, even before the Trump administration came in, again, some of just the honest situations, we had our own border barrier, not exactly the big, beautiful wall as it was often described here, but we were seeing that done in our area even before this point here. So to say that essentially, because honestly, your analysis in my mind comes down a lot to, everything the previous administration did was bad, everything the administration did before that was good, and everything this administration, a B+, which I guess let's put that out of the question here. What rating would you give this current administration and take that going forward here? So appreciate the point in the call. But again, that lens of this analysis of what you don't like, you're allowed to like and not like different administrations and different standpoints here. That is certainly, that's part of what we do here. But among other things, if it's only that, of only the, letter behind the name that I don't like, I'm going to look at only the bad things and say that, they're doing bad, but then not look at the same analysis on the other side. That's the frustrating part. And that's what we are going to, among other things, move on from. So thank you for the point in the call. Let's open it up a little bit further and take the same kind of analysis even further. That's what's important to me. Anyway, I think more people could benefit from that here. Anyway, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more calls on the line. And, some of the comments already coming in on grading here. So we'll take more calls on that point. Again, if you're wanting to chime in, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins, that earlier crash has got the turnaround lane blocked because of the crash, and there's a backup to Piedras Street. George Dieter Drive northbound between Rojas to Vista del Sol, 8-minute delays. On Loop 375 eastbound at the Gateway Patriot, there's a disabled vehicle block of the right lane. And downtown, an accident Delta Drive west of Cotton. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's a grand in your hand.
$1,000.
No NFTs or ESGs. It's $1,000 straight to you.
That is awesome.
Listen every hour from 9 through 5 weekdays for your chance to win.
A grand in your hand is brought to you by Approved Auto. Ride out in your new ride in less than an hour. Get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Auto, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Walmart. Ready to live healthier this spring? Walmart can help you get there. Stop by their Wellness Day event on Saturday, April 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. to check your blood pressure, glucose, and more for free. Live healthier, live better. Check out Walmart Wellness Day on April 23rd.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, then get ready to pay up. The IRS has giant private collection agencies actively tracking down folks who owe the IRS. So if you think dodging them was stressful in the past, it's going to get a whole lot tougher. Optima Tax Relief has this advice. Don't wait. Solve your tax problems now before it's too late. Optima Tax Relief works to stop the demand letters, stop the aggressive collection actions, and stop the IRS collectors from targeting you. Ask Optima about the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands, and nobody knows this program better than they do. Optima is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and they get results, having resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Get a fresh start. Call today for your free consultation.
Call 800-587-6643. 800-587-6643. 800-587-6643.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we got that phone line open right now, just filled up right before we came on this segment here. So if you want to try to squeeze in a little bit later, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And, of course, we got the comments coming in, some of those grades coming in already. Juan Flaco Jimenez giving a grade F so far for the current administration here. I guess maybe I'll separate out a little bit of like intentions versus, well, results here. But I'm on the fence on passing grade in either one, actually, at this point here. Because, again, intentions and, whole road paved to heck and all that good stuff here. But we're going to comment with another interesting comment saying that POTUS may not be completely in control of gas prices, but the action of shutting down oil production by executive action does impact the market here. I'm reminded of an old political cartoon, actually, about the way people sometimes think about how the presidency works, that there's like two levers on the desk of the Oval Office. One, gas prices up and economy up or down, and that's all they do here. Almost a little bit more, well, if you want about a pop culture analysis here, the idea of that essentially that the president is a Green Lantern, that essentially what they can do is just the amount of willpower they expend on it determines how far they can go here. And of course, that isn't exactly true. I think a more accurate analysis of really the position of the presidency previously, anyway, was that they were lobbyists in chief, because sure, they're in charge of executing the laws, but they couldn't pass any themselves here. But honestly, going back again to now that first Bush administration or the second Bush administration, we've been seeing this creep of executive power that has led to, the whole signing statements. Remember that being a whole thing. And now even these executive orders, where that executive orders have essentially defined immigration policy for the better part, if not the entirety of the last decade. Problems exist with that as a concept here, because literally not how it's supposed to work here. But we'll talk more about that here and get to more of those calls here. RJ Flaco Jimenez, Maria Kalman, Juan, Barbara Carrasco, Ed Clore, John Browse, and more tuning and chiming in over on the social media. So let's get to those phone calls now. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Mark over in Central here with us right now. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon, Andrew. And thank you for keeping it clean by saying heck in that one sentence, okay?
Fair enough.
I just wanted to comment. I know we're all thankful most of the time for our First Amendment rights and being able to get on with a prepared speech every day on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to respect that right, regardless of the quality or the accuracy of the content. But there was a perfect example of our president today and his mental capacity, which is just an endless stream of these instances that the media never tells us about. But I don't know if you heard it, he was asked about whether Title 42 he would consider maintaining it rather than rescinding it. And he said, well, something to the fact that it's now under appeal, it's a personal choice, and we'll address that Title 42 later. So he obviously was completely confused about the mask mandate and Title 42 and treated them as one and the same. So, you know, he's incoherent many times and incoherent others, but overall his grade is, you know, if you can give him above an F, I think we're being generous, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate the point of the call here. And again, we take the calls the way we do because I'll put it this way, that there's never been a comment or a position that I've not felt that, oh, you know, there's just no arguing with that. I just got nothing to say here, so I guess I just better bow down to it. Just the discussion is the important part to me. So that's what I enjoy, and I understand it's that everyone might find themselves having their own concerns or issues with that, but that's also the beauty of it, is that we keep these phone lines open and these avenues of comment and more clean comments coming in here.
You handled that one caller well and cut it off at the proper time and rebutted properly a couple of things that were obviously not accurate, but opinion. And I only get to listen to your show for a short time during the commute, and it's generally the same callers, but I do enjoy the show.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
You bet.
All right. Again, if you want to call in during the show, that number to do so, because we do, of course, keep it open, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Flocka Jimenez offering some clarification of his F grade. Again, you can find that for yourself over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. But let's go back to more of those calls here. Right now, we do have Barbara on the west side here with us. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing.
I was going to call on another subject, but I was making some notes here as Raul spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to address some of his comments on Biden. He said that, you know, Biden is great and President Trump didn't do anything. Well, President Trump left Biden with Operation Warp Speed. He left him with a vaccine that Biden did not pick up the ball and go with it. So he dropped the baton on that. And President Trump lifted everybody when he did something as far as our economy was concerned. He lifted the Black community, the brown, the Asians, and even more women working in the workforce in decades than ever before. And President Trump, on top of that, households are making an extra $6,000 a year because of his policies. Whereas with Biden, now we're going to pay an additional $5,200 a year because of the inflation and his policies that have added to that. President Trump also lifted people out of welfare. And talking about the border, we had a safe border under President Trump. Under Biden, we've had more illegals die under his watch than ever before. They've lost 45,000 plus children. They have no idea where they're at, but they believe most of them are being sex trafficked, and these are children, young children. Plus, under Biden, we've had 105,000 fentanyl deaths, and he has not mentioned one peep about those families or the kids that are dying. And we were energy independent with President Trump. Now we're groveling to Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Russia. And Russia, they're negotiating on behalf of the United States with Iran. Every time you hear America, they say death to America. That's the Biden policies. And as far as being energy independent, President Trump increased drilling, not closed it. And he let them drill on federal lands. I don't know if anybody heard what the National Environmental Policy Act was, what they're doing today. They're actually saying drill, baby, drill. Unlike President Trump, when he said drill, baby, drill, they drilled. He was charging, under President Trump, the energy industry was paying $250,000 per ton. Under Biden, they're paying $1,250,000 per ton. Plus, the Biden administration is telling the energy industry, you've got to double the royalties that you pay. So it's like, okay, go ahead and drill. Not only that, he's restricting them to 20% of federal land. So, you know, he doesn't want them to drill. And if they do drill, they're going out there with their arms tied behind their backs. Now, regarding the what's happening today in the Environmental Policy Act, do you remember when President Trump got on TV and he had a stack of papers higher than him? And that was the amount of papers that he said needed just to get a clearance from the Environmental Protection Agency. Well, he did away with those regulations, decreased the time to get an application, and people started getting jobs. Today, what the Biden administration did is they shut that down. They increased the regulations. And under Trump administration, you have to stay within the EPA. You couldn't go outside that agency to review your applications for a permit or anything. Well, the Biden administration opened the doors, and they don't have to stay within the EPA. They can go out and get other reviews on paperwork that you put in to do anything. They've shut down the federal lands, so they've affected the electric vehicles, turbine industry, the energy sector. All those are not even going to get off, even though he has an infrastructure plan. Everything they did today hurts these industries. And it's, so everything Biden has done, I can't even give him a grade because I don't even think he's on the scale. And prior to this, 80% of the rare earth minerals were in California. We got them from China. Well, Texas now has the largest earth metals in the United States. That we have some in Hondo, Texas, and San Marcos, and in Hudspeth County. And they were all going to start drilling. One of them had 950 acres of land that they were going to start drilling. These regulations that came out today are going to hinder all that. So President Biden is not creating jobs. We're 3.5 million jobs short than what we had in the pandemic. He killed the jobs on the pipelines. He's killing jobs with his EPA regulations. Even turbines are not going to be able to be built based on their regulations. It's a 19-page document. I'm so mixed up anymore. I think page 17 through 19 lays this all out. But they're amazing what all these radicals, these Green New Deal people are doing to our economy. They're just ruining every industry, even the industries that they're advocating: turbines, solar panels, electric vehicles. And one of the things they were saying on the news today, electric vehicles take roads under these new regulations. It'll be 10 years before anything is passed, anything is approved for to start work on. So it's disastrous. And President Biden, I truly don't believe, because I had a difficult time understanding some of these paragraphs. He does not know what he's signing. He's just reading what's put in front of him. And it's sad for our country, and it's sad for him, and it's sad for his wife. But, they chose to put him out there in front of the American people, in front of the world, and then we get this stuff. And it's just amazing. And I know I've been saying I want to talk about the Department of Education, but it's like having whiplash every day with this administration, to be honest, because you don't know what to prioritize as far as, what do I talk about today? I want to alert people what's going on, but then something else comes up. But, President Trump did a lot. He secured our borders. He did the first step back. He had the right to try. He had the empowerment zones, NAFTA, the Abraham Accord. It goes on and on and on. And we can't say that President Biden has yet to do anything that has had a positive impact on our economy, on our domestic policy, foreign policy. It's a struggle to get anything that we can go to bed at night and think, wow, today was a good day. I wish that day would come. That's what I pray for. Tomorrow, something positive from this administration is going to happen. And we'll have one day we can breathe and say, wow, we've got something right today. We all wish that for our president. We don't want to see our country going down the way it is. I don't. I just wish President Biden, somebody would give him some guidance, turn him the other way. I recall when Ocasio was on TV one day and he was running for president, she said, I think that we can bring President Biden towards our way of thinking or towards our philosophies and stuff. And you know what? They've done that. And they're quiet. They knew what they were doing. And consequently, America is paying for it. And every day we need to look for something positive out of this administration. And I hope that something comes out of it. Title 42. Let's see what Mayorkas and Lincoln did. in Latin America.
Right.
As long as Mayorkas is there, Title 42 will be lifted. He doesn't go over there to have positive input or to find another path forward. He's there to make sure that path forward is shut down because he wants those borders open. And that's the way this administration is. And I feel so bad for President Biden. I mean, that's just how I feel about our president. So,
yeah, I understand.
40 years ago, you would think he would have learned to stand on his own 2 feet and say no when you have to, and not fear blowback. But I don't see that coming from him anytime soon.
Well, I mean, I said it ever since the start of this election here that my full expectation would be that this administration would be kind of a lukewarm third term of the Obama administration. We've seen both a lot of the policies here, but just not even the kind of audacity of some of the policies that came out of the Obama administration just doesn't seem to be in place here. I mean, yeah, there was, the infrastructure stuff you're talking about, the whole goals even before this point of setting the U.S. towards a net zero transportation emissions policy by 2050, which is still a long ways off. Even the one that he announced a little bit closer to 6 months ago of half of vehicles on the road being zero emission by 2030. I mean, even some of the analysis coming out is going to be a long time on that here. So I'm frustrated in a lot of similar ways you are. I mean, there are some things that I agree with. I think the fine line being walked in the increasing arming of Ukraine, among other things, is that being talked a lot about today is probably the best way to go about it in the meantime. But I do wish there was more going on, well, frankly, behind the scenes, actually. But I guess, yeah, frustration is one of my predominant emotions coming out of this administration. And I think people frustrated will end up finding, other solutions for, how they want to deal with that in the ballot box. And again, all of this very much colors my expectations for what's going to come up here in November with those midterms. And I think a lot of the other people will be having some similar thought process, if not totally same ones of you, similar kinds of concerns that they have going into it.
And Andrew, I hope that people are paying attention to John Durham.
Mm-hmm.
In February, he filed a complaint against Sussman, and Sussman filed a counterclaim, and he wanted the courts to dismiss the suit against him. And he said, get a load of it. He said that even if he did lie to the FBI, it was irrelevant. What? He's a lawyer, and he's trying to tell the court, dismiss the case because my lying is irrelevant. But we spent 4 years of pain and suffering, and the Trump administration fighting him. He lied to the FBI, he lied to the CIA, and I'll stop talking now, and I'll talk about that later on.
I mean, yeah,
thank you for taking my call, and I really appreciate the time you give me.
No, sure thing. I mean, there's a lot of important stuff to get into on all of this, and we got to pick and choose our battles sometimes here. I guess some of the stuff, way I think about this is that, it's going to be, easy to burn out on a lot of these issues here, but that's also why it's important to, discuss them, have other people and give their input here, because if you're considering it in a vacuum, it can seem like, how does one person consider all of these things? And I mean, even though it was talked about by people on the other side of the aisle during the previous administration who had some similar-ish kind of, ways you're talking about it. I heard very similar kind of rhetoric during that time from the opposite side of the aisle. And the simple answer was talked about then, and I think it applies here, is that not one person is supposed to encounter all of this. So we will talk about the things that we do here, but it certainly is not on one person to deal with all of it. But I guess just to keep it in perspective, the way to go about it is just remember what is important to you and take care of yourself. Self-care is important even in this circumstance, but also remember what you can do about it, either talking with your elected officials or holding them accountable in the ballot box. So just kind of a reminder there. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Overdue for that next break right now. We got to take that next break coming out of it. We'll get to more of these calls on the line and more talk about the things affecting us here in the borderlands. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. El Paso County Commissioners will be discussing the next steps in distributing $9.7 million in American Rescue Plan funds. The county held several listening sessions to hear community input on what types of issues the public would like to see addressed with the money. Local nonprofits will have the chance to apply for a share. The city of El Paso is ranked the 12th most populated in ozone in the country, according to the American Lung Association. The State of the Air report was released by the American Lung Association and details two of the most widespread and dangerous air pollutants, which are ozone and particulate pollution. And the El Paso Parks and Rec Department is gearing up to open the city spray parks for the summer season. Several of the spray parks have been plagued by vandalism during the last few months. COVID-19 has also delayed the delivery of necessary parts to complete repairs and maintenance to be able to operate the spray parks. The spray parks are tentatively scheduled to open by Memorial Day weekend. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for a stalled vehicle on the 10 Gateway westbound at Sunland Park. It's blocking the left shoulder. George Dieter Drive is slow. Stop and go traffic from Rojas to Vista del Sol with 8-minute delays. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins. That earlier crash is still causing a backup to Piedras. And watch for a crash at McRae Boulevard north of the 10 Gateway. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Yes, we've had some breezy winds again for our Thursday, but Friday is the big day for our wind maker to arrive. And I'm talking about some areas dealing with wind gusts over 60 miles an hour. There will be a high wind warning for your Friday afternoon, plus a wind advisory. We're looking at very strong winds, blowing dust, and dangerous fire weather conditions.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Before your day is done, Brakemasters has already helped thousands of people get back to their families safely. Get your vehicle in Brakemasters shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Only then can you say your day is done.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us be El Paso's #1 dealer in new Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram sales in March. As a gesture of our gratitude, we've extended all our Ram Truck Month deals, like 0 down, 0% interest for 72 months and no payments for 90 days.
Buy now and save thousands on a huge inventory of new and certified pre-owned vehicles. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. All new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating, 0 APR for 72 months, 0 payments for 90 days. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms, even if your credit is less than perfect. And we want your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. Also like vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Lavinia presents its Spring Wine Festival, Saturday, April 30th and Sunday, May 1st from noon to 7. Over 20 wines available for tasting and purchase. Live music, local art and craft vendors, delicious Southwestern food. Get all the information at laviniawinery.com.
Staples Print and Marketing Services helps small businesses print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 5/28. Visit staples.com/signage for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways of getting at the show, including a Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch that we're up on. A lot of comments coming in on a lot of these subjects as well. Flaco Jimenez, Maria Kelman, Barbara Carrasco on some of these oil field jobs, being highly skilled, among other things, and also Title 42 implications here, and also, the CDC, among other things here. So you can check those out. Seems like we're having a disconnect over on our back-end program here, so can't pop them up on screen right now. But in case you still got those comments, you can check them out for yourself here. But let's get back with those phone lines right now. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. I was listening to CNN, Jake Tapper, the lead, and they had a live news report with Biden talking at a meeting with senior defense officials yesterday. And one of the things that Biden said, and this is really dangerous, he said at the end of his comments, he said, we will properly prepare our men and women of the military when we send them into harm's way. Why would he say that?
I mean, I guess considering, okay, in a vacuum here, my consideration would be that, yeah, we always consider sending our men and women of the military into harm's way. Unfortunately, that is the job here. But given the specificity of the moment, we're talking here about the conflict with Ukraine. Well, let me add one more thing to that here, just as a preparation for future conflict, so to speak here. Saw announcement this week about the more contracts for repainting of U.S. Army vehicles based in Europe here from that, well, the desert tan that it had been for a decade and a half now, to now back to the European green that you may have been used to seeing in previous decades here. So, I mean, again, the circuit and other these things in a vacuum, you're like, okay, sure, these are probably proper preparation amounts. But again, the back end you're talking about here of the implication certainly is a little bit concerning at this particular moment.
When our president says things like that off the cuff, I mean, when he read it, it was kind of off the cuff. It looked like he was not reading from, a prepared statement.
Mm-hmm.
This president is dangerous. The people, the people that are around him know that he's dangerous. Why are we not having? The 25th Amendment has got to be exercised, and if it before we get ourselves into a nuclear war.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. I guess I kind of feel similar way about the whole idea of invoking the 25th Amendment here, as I did about it during the previous administration, because there's a lot of, well, this person's, I just don't like armchair quarterbacking someone's mental health without being their actual physical present advisor on this issue here. But I get the larger point you're talking about here about concerns about the way this is being handled here. I don't know if we're at technically a 20th. I mean, really, there's been no test of the 25th Amendment ever since it was implemented. And they really haven't anything that has risen to that total level here. But even then, if it were to come to a 25th Amendment solution, there is it's not a one and done kind of thing. There is a back and forth that goes with it. So I just got to say that relying on that as a fail-safe here, it would be a strategic mistake.
30%, what I understand, 30 or 40% of his cabinet have to say that he's no longer fit for service, and or the vice president can say that he's not fit for service. That's not going to happen. We are in extreme danger. And what is the end game to this? I ask you, what is the end game for Ukraine in this fight that we're giving them another $800 million of money to or military support and everything else to do what? They can't defeat Russia. There's no way they're going to defeat Russia unless we go in and take care of them and give them the no-fly zone and all the other things. So all we've got is destruction of Ukraine for what purpose? And a military situation that can end in no other way than Russia getting the territory they want.
I mean,
why?
Yeah. I mean, getting into that's a whole nother show here, but in brief, essentially there's three main ways I see this ending. I mean, as likely as it seems there being a Ukrainian victory, I mean, we have seen some strategic blunders on the part of Russian forces here, and whether or not they're actually then revisiting those and dealing with that as they have changed their offensive remains to be seen here. But I mean, there was an expectation very clearly, very publicly stated on the terms of this quote unquote limited military operation, as was announced by Putin, that this would be over in a matter of days, and that is not borne out. So there's the potential that Ukraine could win. maybe one of the more unlikely scenarios, but not out of the question in my mind. There's the other idea that this could go on and stretch on for years, if not a decade. I think actually Zelensky has said himself that Ukraine is prepared to fight for 10 years. So that is very much a possibility. Or actually, 4 options here, and therefore it just becoming this military stalemate ongoing for years here, or Russia essentially saying, well, we achieved our goals, we have secured, the Donbass and these breakaway republics, and doing that, or essentially there being a, kind of a split state, as there already, even without those republics here, kind of like a North and South Korea kind of situation. Those are the potential end games here. Though I will say this, Russia's focus on more of the, nuclear forces that they have been dealing with, but also them saying that, they've actually been placing blame directly on NATO for the sinking of that cruiser, the Moskva, that has been saying this is directly there have been some apparatchiks and state media that have been parroting this lately. So there is still, even in this, the possibility of further escalation, because I don't get the calculus at that point, what would actually benefit, except for a broadening ability to stop the supply lines essentially. But again, that's a whole nother show. But I guess there's a few ways this ends here, none of them particularly great.
And if this goes on for years, what is the effect this has on the United States? We've put all these sanctions on Russia, and it hasn't done anything. The only thing that's hurt it's hurt us. And if we keep on doing what we're doing, sending money that we don't have over there, it doesn't. The only thing, if this goes on for years, the end game is the destruction of the United States.
See what you're getting at there, though.
That's the end game.
Well,
there's no way that you tell me how Ukraine wins this.
Well, Ukraine wins this by essentially doing what it has done. But again, if Russia kept blundering as it does, would make that easier. None of this is easy, so to speak. But really,
you really think that Russia is blundering as much as we're getting told that it is?
So, there's a lot of propaganda going out on all sides of this conflict, make no mistake here. But what I am looking at in some of the independent verifications, because there is still a ton of information coming out of this, open source intelligence has never been as useful, I would argue, as it has been in this whole conflict. I've called this the first social media war, and even beyond those, there are so many other avenues of investigating this. So some of the things I'm looking at here have shown that there has been quite a lot of just tactical errors in implementation. Complete changes of Russian battle doctrine in the first implementation of this here. The Russian previous system of, it used to be, the phrase was recon by artillery is what was being used as a description there. And that has largely, at least in the early stages of this, not used now. As the conflict is shifting and there's also different terrain to go into. Again, there's a lot of specifics to go into here. So I don't know if that avenue is totally available anymore of Ukraine outright winning this. So I think that second option is probably more likely at this point.
Has there been anything that points to Russia doing things to make it to where they can't win?
That's a larger question that I think you're intending to ask right now. But simply put here, there were a lot of issues and have been a lot of strategic losses of forces that Russia probably still isn't willing to even admit to their own people just yet. But in terms of an outright Ukraine victory, just to put that simply here, I don't see that as being terrifically likely, if not totally closed off at this point here. So again, this is a longer conversation that we need to have at this point, but tell you what, we got to take that next break right now because we're getting close to running out of time to even come back to the show here. So we'll consider this a lead into Free for All Friday when we can get into this more here, but we got to take that next break. So coming out of this break, we'll close out the show, tell you what we got working on for you in next week's, and of course, lead into Free for All Friday. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
A Gateway westbound at Hawkins is still slow from an earlier injury accident. 54 Patriot northbound at Pershing. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. There's two of them actually up to the right. Mesa Street southbound at Executive Center Boulevard. An injury accident. Take Stanton or Brentwood as your alternates. And Zaragoza at Don Haskins Drive. El Paso police and first responders had an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Breakmasters.
Before your day is done, Breakmasters has already helped thousands of people get back to their families safely. Get your vehicle in Breakmasters shape. Download coupons at breakmasters.com. Only then can you say your day is done.
Breakmasters. We give you an honest break.
As a marketer, you want to reach everyone, adults, teens, millennials, but it's not like these groups all hang out in the same place, right? Actually wrong. They're all right here, listening to radio commercials just like this one. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM/FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Spending time outdoors can improve overall health and wellness. Celebrate Earth Day and take advantage of nature's health benefits by visiting a local park. Recreate responsibly to protect yourself and others, and to make the outdoors safe and welcoming for people of all identities and abilities. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of things we've been talking about here today. We are short timing it, end of the show here. We're going to get to at least one more call if we can here. Again, a lot of ways you can leave us messages here. Pound 250 system. Dial that on your phone. Say the keyword Talk El Paso, and you can leave us a message day or night. That talkback feature over on the iHeartRadio app. Just look for that little red mic when you're tuned in to the station here. News Radio 690 KTSM here. So you just consider this the lead into Free for All Friday here at this point, because we got a lot more we want to get to here. So I think we can squeeze in one more quick call. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Yes, Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew, thank you. Briefly, border security. Enforce the laws that are on the books.
Yep. I mean, that is, again, a very persuasive point that does seem to be lacking in a lot of implementation.
Yes. As for Raul, hey, Biden can't play golf. This is a guy that has to be led off the White House lawn by the Easter Bunny. But anyway, I turn the mic over to you, Andrew. Have a good evening.
I appreciate it here. Yeah, we have gone a little bit longer. Again, if I have a failing that I've identified in myself, it's maybe letting a little bit too much discussion on too many things when we should probably move on. I'm in it for that purpose, though, so yeah, sue me. Anyway, we have to get through the end of the program here right now, so I do want to thank everyone who did tune in, chime in, call in, participate in the show. We got more of those comments here. If I didn't get to your call, we'll, of course, got Free for All Friday on deck for you tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But we got some of those pound 250 calls that we have just run out of time here for, so I want to thank you all for your patience and some of the times we deal with issues here. We deal with a lot of serious stuff, and sometimes it takes a little bit more time to develop than others, so we'll keep doing it Monday through Friday, particularly tomorrow. Free for All Friday. We'll take your comments and calls throughout the program there. So thank you for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A Gateway westbound at Hawkins is still slow from an earlier injury accident. 54 Patriot northbound at Pershing. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. There's two of them actually up to the right. Mesa Street southbound at Executive Center Boulevard. An injury accident. Take Stanton or Brentwood as your alternates. And Zaragoza at Don Haskins Drive. El Paso police and first responders had an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Spring fever means excitement, and at Casa Buick GMC, it's an exciting time for you to trade up for a great vehicle.
It's Casa Buick GMC's Spring Fever pre-owned sales event
this weekend.
Come take your pick from El Paso's giant selection of used cars, trucks, and SUVs.
We heat it up with the best financing options and lowest rates available.
2017 Kia Soul, $16,725. 2016 GMC Sierra SLT, $37,777. 2020 Buick Envision Preferred, $29,776.
It's an exciting time for you to trade up for a great vehicle this Friday and Saturday at Casa Buick GMC next to the airport, Montana at Airway.
Help DEA keep our community safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 30th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your family medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. To find a collection site near you, visit DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. Visit DEATakeback.com. That's DEATakeback.com.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Stay informed at ktsmradio.com. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The chairman of the Federal Reserve says interest rates may rise more quickly in the near future. Jerome Powell said a 50 basis point hike will be on the table when the Fed meets next month. He made those remarks during an International Monetary Fund panel. President Biden is once again blaming Russian President Putin for the cost of goods globally.
Last month, 70% of the increase in inflation